Yes, it was this strategic warning, and we said that the advancing of the judiciary reform that was the flagship of this government, and this it would bring about an interior crisis that strengthens the economic and the security threats of Israel. We are warning that the continuation of this process will harm the spirit of the IDF and will harden the possibility of Israel to stand above opposite its enemies, and also it will threaten our stability, economic growth, and therefore we said we have to stop and to focus and to foresee the increasing dangers. Unfortunately, the warnings are getting stronger and stronger in our eyes. When we think of the all over the trends and the events that happened lately, we see four vectors that influence the security of Israel. And this justified to put the question if there is here a strategic change. The first vector is the advancing of the judiciary reform and the inner crisis that is taking place. The second vector, the deterioration of the security that we have seen in the last months, that is characterized by this overtaking of what we'll talk about it later. The third factor is the detente in the region, and the fourth is the deterioration in our foreign relations of Israel. So let's go back to the 21st of March, a strategic warning of our few days later. On the 25th of March, the defense minister, also Gallant, is calling to stop the judiciary reform. It is a dramatic announcement that is very not often that it happens here, and he said we have to stop it because there are dangers, there are threats for the country. The day after, the prime minister's he says saying that he's firing the minister of defense, and the strong spontaneous manifestations that take place all over Israel. And the next day, on the 27th of March, the Histadrut is calling out for a general strike. And this is also not without prevalence before, never happened before. And the prime minister is stopping of the legislation on the 28th of March. They start the talks in the house of the president. A very, very troublesome week. But at the same time, something is taking place here. In March and April, on the 13th of March, the unusual in the Megiddo attack on the 23rd of March. The Ramadan starts, and there are warnings. And the 28th of March, sabotage was stopped in Greece, and we arrive at the Passover. On the 5th of April, the evening of Passover, this is the attack on the Temple Mount, on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the next day in Eilat, at the shooting of rockets from Gaza, from Lebanon, and from south of Lebanon. This is already an event that of another dimension. The same day, there's one attack in the Jordan Valley. 3 women were killed, and also on the promenade in Tel Aviv, people were hurt. This is very difficult to digest, but that's what we said at that time. That is what comes out. There's another attack and more missiles that is warning everybody. There is the convergence of the Palestinian convex and the Hezbollah, and we'll talk about it more widely. At the same time, there is a detente. And on the 10th of March, Saudi Arabia and Iran are renewing their relationships. And this event has two results. That the renewing of the relations on the 23rd of March, Saudi Arabia is renewing the relationship with Syria, and the people, the states of the region, it doesn't finish there. There are talks between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis, between Iran and Bahrain, and this is something is happening which is outstanding, which is not really characterizing our neighborhood. At the same time, there is deterioration of the foreign relations. We can see it from different angles, but there's one event that shows everything. And there's President of the United States says no for the question whether the Prime Minister will be invited to the White House in the near future. We had excellent relations. He just says no. This is like in brief, in one word, no. He just says no. But despite of that, the Prime Minister visited in 4 capitals in Europe during this period. He visited in Paris, in Rome, in Berlin, in London. In each of these, he is received under strong criticism about the reform, and there are the demonstrations wherever he arrives. I want to remind you that the day before yesterday, there were very strong critic of the nomination of the Minister Mai Golan to be the Consul of Israel in the United States, because this subject that there's something that is outstanding in the history of diplomatic relationship with Israel, and the Speaker of the State Department says that the United States is against the expressions of a minister of Israel and that sort of thing, and this says a lot. In the same time, there is a deterioration in the economy, and again, the symbol of it on the 15th of April, Modic. This is the one of the most important credit agencies. The first time that the provision of the grading of Israel is going down. It's a result of our own acts. And not only because of the COVID, but a lot of countries have suffered because of the COVID, but we were always, we were more the tendency towards increasing tendency. How do we see a change in the strategy of Israel? The Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant, spoke lately the end of the limited confrontations and the beginning of a new era, the security era, a real threat at the same time. This is a very, very troublesome warning, but I want to see over it that the main strategies of Israel in the last years is getting, what were the main strategies that we don't have this control as much as possible, but also the defense of the walls all these years, and the Abraham Accords, that was a way of to put aside the Palestinian conflict, that we had the agreements with the countries in the region that we will remain, we will go around Iran by a circle of agreements with regional countries. And that was the main strategies, and with the support of the United States, while the United States is the dominant power in the region. And all these elements are deteriorating. The Abraham Accord, it was to put aside the Palestinian issue, and the support of the United States being the dominant power in the region. So that's maybe not the situation, but the deterioration also of few axioms that we took as evident. What are these things? We reposing on the spirit of the IDF, our strength as economics power, but we took it for granted for last 20 years. That the exterior situation goes over what is happening inside. If there is a severe change in the external situation, we are together. This was the vectors, it was the ideas that were behind everything so far. So to show you, I will show you the illustration that on Yediot Achronot in the paper, newspaper, Israel newspaper, on the page number 6, there is a small article by journalist Yossi Yoshua, who is the military correspondent. And next to it, on the 7th page, there is something quite as a picture that what next? On the 30th of April, you open the session, the summer session of the Knesset. I will say my opinion. I will say it in a way, the most reliable way. We don't see in the horizon that a political balance will happen. I don't know what will happen. I think that we don't have the ground stones, the main stone, that will be a balance, a political balance that Israel could go further in a normal way. What do we have? We have few foundations that are putting us in turmoil. Is the way the cabinet of Israel, it became very problematic of the government, and I'm saying it, and the cabinet didn't get together, the security cabinet, the relationship between the government and the security entities have never been like that, and the relationship between the government and the civil society is problematic. This is the situation we are facing, and therefore the conclusion is a very troublesome conclusion. I have a doubt that Israel today has the capacity to have a security strategy in face of the change of the situation, the security change, and this is actually the situation that we are facing right now. And that says also something how to act in a good way. I think that this way, that non-governmental entities have to do the thinking, and it is very because of the warnings and the strategy and the principles we had are changing. We shall not forget that this week, that what is going to happen this week, the day of remembrance of those who fell in the war. I think that each one of us that lives and has been in Israel understands that this craziness of the day of remembrance and the this closeness of the Independence Day together, and it has content, not less, not more. And the fact is that today this balance is getting very fragile. It's very difficult to see it's very difficult to I want to say about the Remembrance Day, that we have to remember to save the civilians. So far, that's what I have to say.